Okay. So we're on.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We all have time to go over the minutes.
I had some suggested changes. And they're all on, other than the spelling error on page 1, which someone else may have caught, sheriff was spelled wrong.
Yeah, when I read those and outside of being specifics, which it was, the record for public comment is very, very general.
Says who?
That's the guidelines from parliamentary,
Robert's rules.
Robert's rules.
That may be. But the law about open meetings says you have to let people know what happened. Now, what I put in there is just what happened. If you don't want to put those in, then I ask that the entire audio tape be included by reference, because the law says you can have audio tape in lieu of written minutes if you like. So, take your choice. There's nothing in there that isn't true.
No, that's true.
One
Because
is,
What?
when Rebecca asked about the fire truck, Kurt said that there was only one truck that was out of compliance and we did not need it till spring. The other truck has been fixed.
No, it hadn't.
It has, we paid for it.
It has, okay.
Yeah.
Then what I heard on the tape is different, but that's fine.
No, I know, Martin, I asked the question to Kurt because I wasn't sure if the good truck got fixed or if it was the other one, and he said, no, it was the other one, the one that was least important.
Okay, then just say one truck is out of
We got one truck out of service, out of compliance.
Okay.
And as far as the snowmobile people coming down, and I did state it in the meeting, he was coming down at the meeting, we canceled with a check to reserve the fairgrounds. And he wanted council's permission, and that's why he was doing it once.
And he should have paid his deposit when he made that reservation.
I did not have reservation paperwork. He was bringing it.
He was bringing it, we emailed it to him.
Okay, fine.
To expand on that a little bit, by law, all we have to put in here on public comment is public comment was taken. It's that general. What we do put in is actually a courtesy to let people know in very general terms what was brought up, not what was said. If people are interested in knowing the specifics of what was said, everything is on video now, and they have access to that. So
Let's incorporate the video then by reference. So it's part of the minutes because there is no law that says public comment is in the discretion of the body. That may be Robert's rules. Robert's rules is not the law.
The audio and video only has to be kept for 1 year. So you don't want that in your minutes
because the audio and video only has to be kept for 1 year.
Then lay it out completely. Lay out what I've said. It's important.
Yeah, well,
It's important to clean up what's going on in this town
and we have been doing that.
at a snail's pace.
Yeah, in your opinion, Martin.
In my opinion, yeah, you've got nothing done on that. That's even slower than snail's
Back to
pace.
the topic here, outside of what Martin has been brought up, is there any other corrections, additions?
Which minutes are we?
I have 3.
Yeah.
The one that has under public comment has the letter F.
And the letter F states,
Yeah, there's 2 of them, they both, 2 of mine have word F. One
Okay.
has,
Is that one short or long?
one's short, one's underlined, I think that's what Mark.
Yeah, it's the abbreviated one. It states a discussion was had regarding the planning of the fire department and other needs.
Okay, so that's the one where.
If there's nothing else, I'll call for the question.
What's the question?
Question is calling for a motion.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to accept the January 11 minutes, the extended version with the corrections we've made. In regards to the fire truck.
the underlined
Is that what I'm
minutes, non-underlined minutes.
I thought we were looking at the underlined minutes. Is that what we're looking at?
Non-underlined. The non-underlined.
Oh, non-underlined minutes.
Oh, so we're not doing it.
We can, if we don't want to accept these, then we can make a motion to accept the other. So whichever motion is made.
what's your motion, Linda?
Well, let's just do the underlined minutes with the corrections in regards to the fire trucks.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right. We have a couple of guests here. The water grant process. Yeah, actually, our improvements on both ends is getting a little more complicated. We have Mr. Nick Ducote. Okay. And Mr. Hitz from the grant, our engineer. I'll let you go ahead and start.
Sure, so,
Do you want to stand up on the
the green
green?
dot right there?
The sound will be better.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think Renee said she forwarded you guys some emails that have been going back and forth to me and the state. If you read the one with all the notes about what they've been telling us since July, they've been telling us that we can use this emergency fund to do design work. So the way that this program splits up something like a construction project, and this is the block grant program, is between final design and construction. You can't do them together, you have to do them separate. So final design stops at, basically you get everything ready. You would have a book of plans and contract documents and specifications. You'd have an environmental report that would be finished. It would be reviewed by the state. And then so you go up to that next phase of construction funding. And then within a couple months of getting your award, you're putting stuff in the ground and you're moving right along. And this will be important information for the sewer project too. So in July, when I first heard about this program from the state folks, they said, yeah, design would be a great fit because then you can get ready for infrastructure bill or whatever other money the federal government is going to spend in the next couple of years. We want to get you ready now. So what happened is they didn't spend all their money in the first round. They opened it up for a second round, and now they opened it up to Portland and Eugene. And now they're saying, oh, well, we don't want to fund design projects for those guys on the west side, so we're also going to say no to Sumter. I said, no, that's not how this is working, because in July, you told us we could do this, and we've been going all along, and we're almost there. I mean, we're 98% ready to submit this application. And it wasn't until they were reading through all of it that they said, oh, well, you can't do this. Because he said, we didn't understand this is what you wanted to do. And I said, no, you repeated it to me multiple times, that this is what we were doing. I like their language that they're reconsidering our application now. I don't think they have anything they can really say no to. Now that we've gotten back this information to them, which they had to begin with, but they just had to act like, oh, give us more stuff and then we'll say yes, even though they already have that stuff. So we're kind of just waiting for them to give us the final thumbs up. All the forms are done. They've been reviewed. We don't have any comments as to the substance of the forms and what we've said, just the concept of the project generally. They've said, oh, never mind, you can't do it anymore. So if we get the thumbs up, I don't know how long it's going to take. Bureaucracy moves at a snail's pace, but we'll submit the application. Hopefully within 2 months from that point, you guys would get a contract from the state. We'd be off and running on the water design project to get, can't do much with all the snow on the ground, but you can start with what we can start with, and then as soon as it melts, we can be off and running with surveys and stuff like that. So if they say no to this emergency funding, then we're really just losing a couple months, because at the end of April, what they wanted us to do is push us off to the end of April with the normal cycle of block grants, which will happen in April and September. We're trying to get this emergency money because it will allow you to spend however much we spend from the emergency money. It won't count against your $2.5 million block grant cap. So basically, instead of having $2.5 million to spend on the water system, now you have $3 million to spend on the water system, if we can get it from this emergency fund. So we save 4 or 5 months and a couple $100,000 that we can put towards the construction project. So that's why I'm really pushing them to accept it, get it moving, because they were waiting for the audits. And they said they would accept a draft of the latest one. We've got that, so they say we can start moving it forward. So cross your fingers and knock on wood and pray to the gods of bureaucracy that they give us the go-ahead.
We had talked about another thing we didn't know about, and that was the environmental impact study. How is that playing into this time frame?
Sure. So those are always done as a part of the final design project. So that would be something that I would do alongside the engineer. They're doing their survey, they're doing their plans, and then I would get that information from them, and I would run it through kind of all the different filters of environmental stuff, wetlands and floodplains and endangered species and contaminated soil. There's about 20 different categories that I go through with that document, put that together. But it's a very specific format that you use for this funding agency, and a lot of specific information that you don't need unless you want federal money. So we can kind of segue over to the sewer project. So with the water project, you wanted to start it right at the beginning with the assumption that you're going to use block grant to build with it. You're going to design it, you're going to build it all with block grant, and you start, before the engineers even started putting together plans. But for the sewer project, you already have plans, you already have a lot of that work done. And my understanding is it was not done with the assumption that you would get block grant money to pay for this, because there was another source of money that originally was lined up to pay for the sewer. And now that money's gone. So now it's, what do we do to get money to pay? The problem is you didn't design the project for this funding source. We can still do that, but it's going to take time and money. So you kind of have two ways you can go about it. There's two alternatives. You either pay up front to get all this stuff done that needs to be done for block grant, or we go to block grant and ask them for money to do this stuff, and we push it off. I really think that's a better idea, because we can't get what you need done by April anyway. If you wanted to get block grant to pay for sewer construction, it might be possible to get it all done by September, although we're also going to be really busy to get the water project done by September. But instead of the city paying $20,000 or $30,000 to do all this different stuff that might have to be done, get the paperwork pay maybe $2,000 for me to write an application, and then get the federal government to pay for what might be a small project to get you ready for construction. But those are kind of the two options. If you want block grant money, it's great, and it's free, but it comes with a lot of strings and a lot of stuff you have to do on the front end to get that.
Now, on the sewer project, if you work on our grant and stuff, do you work alongside those engineers as well as like you already?
Yeah.
So my question is to you, would it be, because we have verbal permission to cross private ground with the pipe?
Oh, so you have to cross private ground too.
It
That's a
goes,
whole other thing with block grant.
well, the thing is though, is we just need to make sure that, I'm not sure what I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen up there as far as making the trail through after we get the survey and everything and we get them out. Because the trees and stuff that are going to be removed will have to go to the landowner and it'll have to come back written. You do that, or does the city do this?
Well, that's a whole nother, but a sewer line that the federal government pays for on private land, you can't do that. You can't have a verbal, there's the Uniform Relocation Act. So now we get into a whole nother federal law that would be involved in that. You're gonna have to get an easement, you're gonna have to offer the property owner money, you're gonna have to offer him fair market for that easement. The federal government will pay for that, but to further complicate it, you can't buy it until you get the environmental release of funds before construction. So all you can do is get an option on this easement. There's a whole thing.
See,
There's
because
a lot of trouble.
Because as of right now, I have no idea if the paperwork's there or not, because we had, from what I understood, the easement for the old line that went through. With putting in the new one, it still will be the same, it will still be a line easement, that they're just gonna, we're gonna abandon one line and just make it a straight line instead of zigzagging across their property. Because that's what it does now.
I mean, if a lawyer says you don't need an easement, then you don't. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really answer that. But
But is
if
this
you tell
something,
me,
is this something that you work on though, or is
I
this?
can help you through the federal process of getting this easement. I
Because
can't
I don't
tell
want-
you if you do or don't need the easement.
I don't want to start something and then say, oh, well, here's a roadblock. And it's a pretty big one, really.
Well, you should know, as soon as you would do a public hearing, before we even submit an application, when you do a hearing to get us eligible to apply for the sewer project, you will then bring in this federal law about procuring this easement. So you guys need to really think this through and understand the situation before you open a can of worms on yourself with this private property sewer line thing. I mean, I saw in Monument, there was an easement for utility lines and a sewer line, and they wanted to put a water line in the same easement. And because the language was a little different and it didn't explicitly give permission for this, they had to go through the whole process and buy a slightly more encumbered easement, basically from all of these property owners.
Well, the thing is though, is whether we stay and try to find us a 50-50 grant or we go with a big federal grant,
Sure,
they're
it
still
doesn't-
going to have this easement.
maybe not. I mean, your lawyer really needs to answer that question.
Okay.
I can't answer whether this situation is legal or not, but I can tell you that if you go with a loan from the state, it's gonna come from lottery money. And anything from lottery money it has some rules, but way fewer rules. It doesn't have the environmental rules, it doesn't have procurement rules, so that's the trade-off, right? You go get a 50-50 loan, where it's 50% grant, 50% loan, you don't have to deal with all this shenanigans.
But at the same time, it's going to cost us about $4,500,000 for the city's portion.
Right, right, so that's why you guys get to make the fun decisions.
So what you're saying, what systems engineering has done, we have to upgrade that, can we use what they've done and build on that for the sewer and wastewater?
Yeah, I mean, what's been done is certainly valuable. I mean, you're like 90% there,
Okay.
right?
You just have to add more on.
Yeah, there's more paperwork that you need to do if you want this specific money. If you want $2.5 million of free money, you gotta do much paperwork. And make sure the federal government, isn't spending their money in ways they don't think is right or whatever, so.
So You're thinking, there's no way we can get that prep work done for April.
No way.
It'd be a push to do by September, but that would be our goal. So we would know if we have that grant in time for spring construction.
Yeah, it'd also be a situation too in September where if we had the water project going out for construction and the sewer project for construction, source for both projects, you're gonna have to prioritize one. And if they don't have money left, they're not gonna fund that second one. So that was also a risk of asking for a lot of money all in one application cycle from this program. So you could be pushed off till April just because of the water project, and not fund both at the same time.
But the thing is, those in September, even if we say we decide hypothetically that we're gonna do the water, so they push out the sewer, but they still said that they would finance the sewer, but not in this same cycle. So then we could resubmit in April, correct?
So when you say finance, do you mean just fund or do you mean loans?
No.
They'll give you loans whenever you want.
Yeah.
They'll sell you a loan whenever.
No.
Yeah, the grant cycle is April and September each year.
So, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, if they decided to push that one back because we prioritized, so therefore, by April, we would redo it again?
Yeah.
Because in April, we would also know, because if they say, no, we're not gonna do it, then we're gonna have to come back with a 50-50.
Right. And the nice thing with these applications too, when you put one in and you don't get it, there's not a whole lot you have to do to update it for the next year. Everything doesn't change a whole lot. You might just have to update the financials, some of the stuff we've been working on, number of connections, your usage and stuff like that. So it's not a totally wasted effort. I've been on a lot of cities where they don't get it, they submit again, there's a little bit of work, each time, a couple hours versus, 20, 30 hours for doing now to start one.
But the legwork we're gonna do for a block grant, though, will work. In fact, it's an overkill for doing a 50-50.
Oh yeah, you'll need way less information for a loan than you need for these block grants. You probably need about 6 attachments instead of 40.
So either way, though, it's gonna get pushed out to a year.
Yeah, unless you wanted a loan, you could get a loan and start construction this year. But it's just gonna cost you a lot of money. So the rates are also only going up. So it's not a great time to get a loan, but it's only gonna get worse. So it might be a tough decision of, if you are stuck in a place next year where you gotta get a loan, the rates are gonna be way worse than they are now.
What are the chances of this access to this grant money is not?
Of next year, I guess the government can fall apart between here and then, 10% chance of that happening. But otherwise, this funding's been around for 30, 40 years, so. The money that's gonna go away is the emergency money, the stimulus money, that one-time chances. But every year they get like $15 million to distribute to different projects, so that hasn't changed.
Back to the water grant. Do we have a lot, I thought, didn't we go get most of that done, or they have to do a lot on that?
So the HECO really hasn't worked much on the grant. I've been doing all the work on the grant, but they did the engineering that you
Do
did.
they have a lot more to do on that to upgrade to the emergency block grant?
No, they don't have anything to do. We really just need Business Oregon to give us a thumbs up and we're done.
Okay, so
We're done with
that one's in good shape.
Yeah, they got me everything I needed probably in the summer. So we've just been waiting on the audits really to go
Right.
forward with everything.
Anything else for Nick? Thank you, Nick. I'll ask you to stay
Yeah,
and let Mr. Hitz give us his information on how this information is going to affect. We've kind of touched on that.
and he and I talked last week too. We kind of had the same conversation.
So I guess, kind of what Nick was talking about, the extra stuff we're gonna have to jump through, everything we've done is getting us to that point. We just haven't gone through it and dealt with it specifically as it belongs to. You know, I think there's gonna be some issues that come up. I mean, we're crossing the creek, we're, you know, working around, there's gonna be stuff that we're gonna have to clear out to get the federal money. And then the private ground, I mean, you're crossing private either way. I mean, it's just a matter of whether we go in the old easement or we go in the new easement across there. So if that's a hang up on the deal,
It's not a hang up as much as just another complication.
yeah. Which, depending on how it turned out, the extra time might be needed to get those things worked out.
Well, right now would be a good time to, if we're gonna get the city attorney involved in it, because the city can do that, and get that blessing handled before we're even ready for you.
Yeah, honestly, if you want to get the easement, you should get it now before we start the block grant process. Because then you can just say you have it, and then we don't have to jump through all those hoops.
Yeah.
So take that verbal and make it a contract, and you'll be fine.
Do they care how it's acquired?
Not before you have
It's
the
done and over with.
not before you demonstrate intent to apply for block grant. So don't demonstrate any intent before you get this easement and you're fine. That would be like holding the public hearing.
Okay. Do you know the window that Fish and Game or the Corps is gonna set for us to go across that creek?
So your in-stream is gonna be like July and August.
Is there in-stream work?
We gotta get it pipe across the river.
They go under it? Like a horizontal bore?
Or digging, it's not a salmon or steelhead stream. So.
Is it wet one?
It would be a wetland, yes.
And during the time that he's talking about, the stream's dried up because Warnock takes all the water.
Sure, so it doesn't matter if it's dried up, if it's a wetland. Well, I guess we probably won't trigger a permit on it. You're not gonna have 50 feet.
No, 50 cubic yards. No, I think we're fine as far as the permit stuff goes. If they were to do that before they held their public hearing, I mean, literally put a sleeve or put a pipe across there.
I mean, I guess you could, it's just a little weird to have one piece of the project done and then ask for the rest of it to be done, but.
Other than the window time.
Yeah, but I mean, if you get money for it, it's not gonna be until next year anyway.
Right.
So I don't know, that's just kind of a decision for you guys.
Which is gonna be, I talked to Greg a little bit about it, because I think it's gonna be that time of year anyways, between when the water table drops, the creek drops, and we get the pond pumped down to where we can do this.
That's the other, I mean, to do our tie into the lagoon, our pond's gonna be empty out there. Which would be right in the same.
Right in that area.
When we wanna go across the creek. There's plenty of other pieces that we can do, you know, before that time. I mean, as far as going up the hill, getting the irrigation line set. You know, we got the ditch to get across that.
Yeah, and that was a question I've got, but it's more for the construction side, because it may be for you too, you may know, because seeing as we're gonna bore underneath that ditch, you may wanna do it before the water's in it, for when they're running water, taking the water to Warnock. So I don't know if you want it, or if it can seep, well, my thing is if you bore underneath it, it seeps through, caves in the ditch, because the ditch is just dirt.
Well, so when we bore through it, I guess one thing, that the lubricant they use for directional boring is bentonite. So it's gonna help seal anything that's loosened up in there. But then as soon as it's bored through, we'll pull the pipe through and it'll be lined at that point.
Yeah, because I think we talked about just leaving that too.
What's the cost estimate, Joe?
You know, I didn't bring that with me.
Well, it was $850,000 in June or July, and that was for the half and half. But
And that didn't include the
because
fence.
Because that material,
So that was 900,000,
Probably.
it was probably a little more than that.
$1 million now. Yeah. And by the time you build it next year, it's $1,023,000. I mean, that's what I'm saying about inflation and rates, and
Yeah.
it's like it's a tough decision, and it's not a fun conversation to have, but it's the reality of the financial world.
Because if I remember right, Joe, it includes a fence that goes around the pond, right?
Included fencing on the irrigation
On the
side.
irrigation side.
And I think just repairs on at the pond, just the corners and stuff that are broke down.
Yeah, because we reached out to DEQ to find out, because I kept hearing that we had to put in we had to make the pond where people, animals could not access the pond, and the barbed wire fence we got around it ain't it. So I was
It's a
thinking,
big condition for sure.
it was going to end up being more of a cyclone thing, is where my mind was going.
I mean, DEQ will have to make that call, but I think originally that was like a 5 or 6 foot, I mean, the barbed wire that's out there is more than a standard cattle fence. As long as they accept that, I mean, if those wires are tight, there's no openings and stuff in there, and it's posted all over, which is what they're asking for.
Right.
I don't know why they wouldn't, but.
Because I think we looked it up, and I think it was a year ago, it was February last year. I reached out because council was talking about what it would take to fence the sprinkler irrigation off, and they told us that deterrence up there is what you're looking. He said, so you can put up a single cable and have signage, because all you're trying to do is deter people, instead of trying to put up 4 or 5 strands of smooth wire or whatever. Because like I said, with the elk running around the bears and everything, we just tear it down. Where if we just put a single strand 3/16 cable through it, we should be golden. They hang signs on it. They were happy with that, so.
I mean, other cities we work with, they've got lock gates going in and 4 or 5 strand barbed wire fences around the lagoons and DEQs. That's fine. As long as it's well posted and everything. I think that's what we're looking for.
What kind of time and expense are we looking at to, on top of what you've already done, to get ready for block?
We probably have to do a little.
What's your design percent?
I'd say we're at like 90.
So just coordinate DEQ, do through this fence thing out. I mean, I would think it's probably 40 grand max from 2 of us. I mean, if I'm looking at about 10 grand for an environmental, a little less than that. Joe's maybe got 30,000 engineering to do on it. Just kind of ballparking here.
Do we need environmental study for the water project?
Yeah, and I'll do that as a part of the final design. The difference is that for the water project, you're starting with final design with block grant. For this project, you didn't do that, and you want to go right to construction. So we have to do all the things that didn't get done during what would normally be a block grant final design, so that you're ready for that when you're when you go. It has the most strings of any program, really. So it's just, if you plan to use other money, you just wouldn't have done these things, and there'd be no reason to, and it'd be a waste of your money. So.
It's a large amount of money, it's not right.
So basically, for us to move forward with the block grant in the sewer ordeal, what kind of funding do we need, as a city, what do we need to pay you to get started?
Well, it sounds like about $30,000 to $50,000. So my proposal is we could try to get that from block grant. We could apply in April with the information we have, and we could try to get that from them with like a $2,000 application. You go get $50,000, and then we take that, and we go get $1 million, right? And then all you pay for, we could even get that to pay for the grant to be written, right? Once we get that block grant money. Some of the other sources, you could go and get a loan. We could talk to USDA. A loan will be the fastest, and we'll give Joe and I the most time to get things done. If we get a block grant in April, you're not actually going to get it until June. So that gives us 3 months, to get everything done. It's not a whole lot of time.
To be able to reapply in September.
Yeah, to be able to supply again in September. It's possible, but it's not going to be an easy lift. It's a very busy summer.
If I'm hearing it right, September is when the water applications.
And that's what, hopefully the water application is going to be. But I also understand that it's possible a ball gets dropped on all of these things, and it's just good for as much of it to be ready and to be moving forward. Right now, none of it's moving forward. So, if we miss one in September, we can be ready with the other one, but if we don't start on any of it, then nothing's going to be ready for anything.
So the water one will be ready for April.
The water one is ready now if they'll just allow us to submit it. And there might need to be a few revisions made, but it's done.
So, yeah, technically, it could be improved.
Yeah, and we will apply in April. If they say no to this emergency money, we'll just apply in April with everything we've already done. It just means losing a couple $100,000 in a couple months, which you guys don't have. So that's why I'm fighting them on it.
When do we know whether they'll accept this, based on what they've led you to believe in the past?
They haven't really given me a time frame, but they got back to me faster than I thought they would the first time. I would say within 2 weeks, hopefully we would know. I would encourage you guys to bother them and explain to them how important this project is. One of the things they said is they wanted to make sure the city was bought into how fast you need to go. I said, yeah, they get it. They get how much of an emergency this is to you. So it wouldn't be the worst thing to explain to them in your words, Mayor College, Shelby Gonzalez, or Jeremy McBeady.
Their emails should be on that email that I forwarded to you guys from Nick.
They just need to hear, yes, this is an emergency, and yes, we want to get it done as fast as possible. And, that you guys are, with the whole audit situation, I know that's not necessarily the people sitting right here's fault, but it's been 4 or 5 years since all this has been caught up on, and explaining some of that, saying, hey, we're trying to get moving. We understand it's an emergency. Let me tell you a little bit about how much of an emergency this is, to really get that through.
I'll handle that part. Charlie, you want to talk to Paige about the easement part? Okay. Anything else, Joe, that?
I don't have anything. Really, I guess once we decide which direction we're going, it kind of dictates what we're going to take off.
Yes, we need to decide, are we going for both block grant? And just pray.
I think the big question is, how do you want to pay for construction for the sewer project? How fast do you want to move? How patient you can be? Are you okay waiting 1.5 years if you have to? Because once we start going down this road of spending money to get you ready for block grant, you don't want to have to, then just go get a loan anyway. So if it feels like a situation where in 1 year, you really need to have this started. You need to have it done, and you can't take the risk of will you or won't you get it. Because the water project is a slam dunk. You guys are going to get funded for that. That if we can get everything lined up in time, I have no doubt that we'll get all the money that it can get. There's no bigger problem. You guys have one of the highest low moderate income percentages in the state. It's going to be pretty good there. But when you're going after 2 at the same time, it's going to get trickier.
See, and that's the thing too, because reaching out to DEQ, because I was always told DEQ was the one that was prompting the sewer. And after getting it, we have it in writing to where they says that there's nothing out there other than our sewer permit. That's the only thing we're short on. And that's what we've been working, Renee's been working on that to get us in compliance with it. But other than that, there's nothing that DEQ's pushing on us for.
So you don't need to do this sewer project to get in permit compliance?
That's from what I understand from DEQ.
Back when it all started.
But not anymore?
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, because that's what,
Our permit was from 2016. They're updating the permit. We'll find out more on the compliance portion while they're doing this while they're in this permitting process.
One of the big things was the application area, because it was not being applied to enough area. That they were concerned about. So I don't know what your permit says, but I mean, in reality, the application area is still the same application. They haven't added any sprinklers.
Yeah, because I bring up what you said, Joe, about having to have that, I don't know, the technical name of it, but it's that ratcheting valve that we're gonna put in that's mechanical.
Yeah, they were just concerned about our rates that we were applying and the fact that it wasn't enough area based on the calculation. And then that triggered going farther up the hill, which triggered replacing the line, getting rid of some of that, above ground hook and latch irrigation and making it a solid pipe. And then issues with the pump flooding out were basically our new pump system addresses that. I mean, I don't think that's a compliance issue, that's a wore out system.
It just needs to be changed.
If it's not a compliance issue and you're not getting fined and people's basements aren't getting flooded with sewage, I mean, those are kind of like, go get a loan and, fix the line that's flooding people's houses. But I don't have a really good feel for how important this sewer project is in the scheme of things.
Yeah, like I said, they're doing their research on it now, because it all started back in 2010, 12, someplace back there is when they got, the city ended up with a $9,000 fine. And I kept hearing that's because the pipe right now goes across the bridge and it was leaking in the creek. And it was dripping in the creek, and that was the issue. Renee read the thing to me today, and it sounded like we were just out of compliance for our usage permit on the sewer side. Which we're trying to get, I think we're working on getting that right. That, and we didn't have a signer, and that, and they weren't pulling samples. Which we, with Box R, we're pulling the samples, and we have a signer.
The only other issue that we could get fined for between now and the upgrade of the project is we're supposed to spend so much money on upgrades and maintenance. Not normal maintenance, has to be upgrade type on our system down there. I think 2 years ago it was $7,000 and some dollars. If we don't spend all of that, then we either gotta talk fast or we get fined.
Was that in lieu of a fine or something?
Yeah. So the capacity of our system right now, we have changed the way that we run the system the last couple of years, and it's given us greater capacity. So between now and a year and a half, our capacity is adequate. Outside of any issues DEQ might have with our footage.
I mean, if you guys can wait 2 years to do this sewer project, we can slow roll it with block grant and probably get it done for very little money. That's just kind of the thing that I don't know is waiting 2.5 years a big deal or not. It's not like DEQ doesn't know either.
Yeah, I think
Not a surprise.
I think we need to get more definite information from DEQ.
Yes.
How much of a push they're gonna put on us.
That's going to come back from that study that they're doing now. They have no more answers than the answers that we just got yesterday or today.
Is there an idea of how long it's gonna take them to do all that?
I don't know.
Couple weeks.
But like I said, if we push for the almighty block grant, and if we don't get it this year, we can push for it next year. Because by that time, this would be up and running.
Yes.
Or moving forward, it ain't gonna be up and running, but moving forward. Because that was one of my main concerns, because I kept hearing about how we're out of compliance, how we got fines coming. I kept hearing this. I never seen it, but Renee looked into it. Like I said, it started back, the last fine that we had was 2015, 16, 13. And then that was taken care of. And then the last contact anybody had with DEQ was when we asked about doing the cable around the sprinkler mounts. That's the last, the city's had anything to do with it.
Just talking to the one, they got new personnel in there that weren't involved back in 2013. But, you know, along the lines, I think your predecessor got it to where it did not have to be chlorinated. I mean, that was like, had to be happening thing originally. And so that kind of came out of the project when we started the design work of it. But my understanding was that we were out of compliance based on the amount of application area that we had up there. And that the rate that we were applying it, you know, we had to apply it slower and over a bigger area before they would put us in.
Yeah, we need a bigger application area, and we need to be with that.
Yeah.
Joe, did you do like a PER or anything about all this? Can you send me that?
Anything else for Joe? Thank you. Nick, do you,
I guess the only thing I would say is we kind of need a decision if you want to go after a block grant in April for the sewer by next month. It usually takes me about 6 to 8 months to put these together, so there's a lot of stuff that has to be done. I don't have a whole lot of time, so we want to figure it out and get moving on that. It wouldn't be a big deal if we want to do it by September, because we got plenty of time. If you want to get it done in April and get this moving and get me working on environmental, get Joe working with DEQ, and also lock in this whole easement rule. You know, next month is kind of your last chance to get it moving on the whole public hearing and notice it beforehand. And, so given all of the stuff that's up in the air, my recommendation would be wait till September and figure out all this other stuff before we start involving the feds with the sewer project.
Do the invitation of funds, the design side of things and the construction side of it.
No, I think they would understand why the city needs a small amount of money to get the sewer project ready.
That might be a better ask at that point anyway to be going.
It's going to be a very full round is what I've heard in April, so it's kind of going to be hit or miss anyway, except for your water project. If that was in there, I think it would rise to the top. But if there's not a compliance issue with the sewer, it's not going to rise to the top.
well, it's not one as of yet.
Well, and hopefully there isn't, right? I mean,
So if you know in 2 weeks, whether or not we're going to be accepted for the water part of it.
the emergency funding for the
Right, that really gets us on the road then, right? And wouldn't that then have an impact on what decision we make with respect to the sewer one?
I think it should kind of be separate. I don't think they really need to be connected. I think if by somehow we got everything lined up for September for water and sewer, you guys obviously have a priority. It's the water project. And you kind of just roll your dice and you see what happens on the sewer project. I mean, the more application cycles you can submit, the higher your chances are of getting the sewer project funded. You know, whether it's September and April and the next September and the next April, eventually you will get it funded. But it's kind of hit or miss sometimes depending on how many other cities have their stuff ready to go and whether it's design or construction, because if somebody's got a $2.5 million construction ask, that'll drain a quarter of the state's available money, you know, for one project. So that's what you do with your water project, you drain most of their money.
All right, so let me ask you, so we're clear. If the water, emergency water application is submitted in April.
It'll be submitted now,
No,
Oh, and
like next month.
because it's an
The
emergency.
next 2 weeks, the emergency one will be submitted.
Okay.
If they don't accept the emergency water, we submit emergency water in April during the regular cycle.
Okay. And then that block grant in April would be, the funds would be available in June. So we could start the construction on that in June.
You can't start construction on anything in June. You can start design and environmental work. You can start design environmental work on the water project and design environmental work on the sewer project. Neither of those are ready to construct the block grant.
Okay, so that's why you were saying in our conversation before, it would be shovel ready next year. All right. And in the same process, even if we submitted the sewer in September, it would be shovel ready if approved next summer.
The sewer one is not gonna take nearly as much work to be ready. You know, it's pretty ready. The engineering is usually what takes a year or more. The environmental I can do in 4 to 6 months, I would say, you know, without question. I have to submit a lot of things to state agencies. I never know what they're gonna say. So, you know, it's theoretically possible to get done in 3 months, but I think I've done one that fast. So out of about 50.
Anything else? Council have anything else for two gentlemen?
Well, I think the block grants are more affordable for the city as far as if we have to wait a little longer, it still saves us money.
Let's, we're in the report section right now, the agenda. Let's go ahead and bring that up under new business. We have nothing there. Let's have that discussion. All right, gentlemen.
All right, you guys, let us know what you decide.
Thank you for
Oh.
spending the time with us.
Keep pushing on the water project.
Thank you.
All right, Public Works, there is nobody here. We
Thank you.
had a situation, that was discovered today. The inflow to our water supply is not adequate to refill the usage at present. It was determined that the problem is up at our intake. A decision was made this morning to go ahead under emergency situation, go ahead and hire Clark Construction or whatever his name is, and plow that out so the boys can get in. Assuming that's why they're not here for the meeting, is they're still up under the intake. Have talked to the attorney, we'll be dealing with it here a little later in the evening about the RFP. So that's the update on water. We have nothing else there, so. We have one planning application from Mr. Wilson. It's a kind of a weird little addition. It's filling in an inside corner, 8 square feet. Where is it? Here. Four, 5 acre Nanza. Setbacks and so forth is not applicable. So my understanding is the project is done. I've talked with him that he needs to follow procedure. Instead of asking forgiveness, he needs to come in and submit the application for consideration before he does the project. This is not the first one he's done this way. Any concerns or comments on his addition?
You just build in the corner, right? Because it's
Build that
in
corner.
They built in that corner on the back side of the home.
the middle of the house. I make a motion Tracy Wilson's application.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, new business, block grant versus 50/50 loan. Open that up to discussion from council.
Well, if we do the wastewater on a loan, right now, we're up at $800,000 for a loan to be taken out to Business Oregon. Realistically, it's gonna be higher than that with the prices of material. So, you know, we're gonna be taking on large debt. If we then, wait for the block grant, it's 100% grant. So it's not gonna cost us, because the grant will include the money to pay the engineer and, the only thing I have concerned about pushing it up farther is we owe Sisal money, and then the wait will only come.
Who?
Sisal Engineering,
Oh, yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Yeah. We know what that amount is now, I'm not, that's where he's at.
it looks like it's 35,000.
My question would be to you too, Greg. Seeing that you've been up there quite a bit on the upper end that we're thinking about going for where we're proposing to put the new line so we can gain ground. How many acres you think you're going to gain?
On the new line?
Yeah, you know, we're going up on top of the hill. Instead of routing and going up, we're going to go straight up and put you on top. So we can add more laterals.
Right.
How many acres or footage you think you're going to gain?
In comparison, I guess I've blocked the old one a couple of times. I'm gonna say probably double. Well, yeah.
Yeah, because I know John Young, he was saying our old sprinkle grounds could never be sprinkled again in their duty.
Yeah, that's not it.
And that's not accurate as we're learning. So with the new ground in which we're still paying for, that would give us a lot more to be able to move down again, like we let this up here set. And because it's a downhill slide instead of pushing water uphill. But we're pushing water, we're going to push water to the highest side now with the new system. Correct.
Yeah, up to the road, we have property on the other side.
Right.
We have no immediate plans to do anything with.
Right.
But yeah, it will be going clear to the top.
Okay.
Yeah. Barring any infractions, non-compliance, and I think it's a no-brainer, to go for a block grant. As I mentioned before, capacity is not a problem at this point. Biggest problem we have is with our pump. Praying that thing will last another season beyond this one. So, we can always fall back on the 50/50. If something comes up that,
Well, pretty much like that's what I was mentioning here is if we go towards the block grant, we jump through all the hoops and we get that part done. Then if we need to, you can always come back to the 50/50 because you don't have to. We did an overkill.
Yeah.
And if everything still is working well, and it is good, we can, and then push it out another year, you can do that too. Depending on what Nick gets done. So I think doing the block grant is a wise decision for the city,
Rather than getting a loan.
rather than getting a loan.
Does the loan have any impact on the limitation on indebtedness that our charter says that we can have?
That's a good question, Mark. That would be a question for Paige.
What does the charter say? Is it only bonded indebtedness? If it's only bonded, I assume a bank wouldn't require a bond, because it'll cost us a fortune to get a bond. I think it's towards the end.
I believe your charter says you're allowed to be $1,000 in debt, and you guys have not
Yeah,
covered
that's-
that yet.
That's my recollection, is it's so inadequate.
Well, but that can't be read literally, because we've been down that road.
Well, was the grader putting you way over that anyway?
No, because it's a lease. Oh, yep.
We're well over that now on the land.
See, and that's what I was improvised, or was told before, is because of the buying of the land, doing the city upgrades for the sewer and the water didn't apply to this. Because we're not going out to get a loan, we're getting it from Business Oregon. So it's not like we're going to Banner Bank going, we need this money. Because that's not what that was.
And it's certainly not something you guys should take lightly, because your charter holds you responsible for the indebtedness over $1,000. So, Greg, are you gonna talk to Dave about the property getting easement?
Charlie's gonna talk to Paige
Sure.
about that.
Okay.
You wanna, as the second issue, talk about that charter, how it applies to that, that's, there's different things that the charter doesn't apply to, ways of funding, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, the broadcast way to go for the bigger, because the price tag's gonna increase as we go along. Because it was at 800, and that's when Joe updated it in June as materials.
You know, it appears that there may be an increasing chance that we're gonna have a wreck. And if that's the case, materials may go down significantly, because, if we do have a wreck, the only people with money is the government. The Fed's meeting tomorrow will announce whether it plans on having rate hikes, how many and when. And that's gonna impact all that. So I think normally I think you're safe in saying that inflation at some rate will continue. It always has, but not at the tremendous rates it's happening at now. The supply of money, the world's awash in money right now. And whether they put the brakes on or not remains to be seen. So, we're peering into the womb of time, and that's never very accurate. So it could be cheaper. It seems to me we ought to go for that block grant if we have capacity. If things get out of control as far as costs, the government will probably increase what it will offer, because they're political animals.
This is what way to go.
I think we shared it up, that I can ask the question, which translates into asking for a motion concerning block grant versus 50/50 loan.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with making Sissel's Engineering to get the block grant for the wastewater project.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. The proper way of doing this is, now that we have a motion and a second, is to have discussion to word the motion the way that we want it. Discussion on block grant versus the 50/50 loan is over, but how do we want to word this motion? This is for practice, if nothing
Well,
else.
this is for practice. Motion is that we accept, we go forward with the block grant utilizing Nick and Cisco Engineering.
On the wastewater.
On the wastewater.
So we can word it as,
What's wrong with that word?
make a motion to apply for a block grant on our sewer project. That's simple.
Well, utilizing the two guys that are here.
Okay. You just like Mr. Cote and Mr. Hitz.
Which is also approving to pay them, Nick, to write the grant.
Did he ever send us a contract? Well,
No, he just said tonight it would be $2,000 for him to do it.
Okay, so reword that motion. Linda makes a motion for approval to pursue block grant for the sewer project, utilizing Mr. Hitz and Mr. DeCote, and paying them appropriately for their services.
No, you need to put it to where we're gonna pay Nick $2,000. You're not gonna pay Joe, we're paying Nick,
No,
because he's the one that's going to do the application.
his $2,000 was for the application for the sewer and the water.
sewer.
Okay. All right,
The
so,
water one's already done,
all right,
because he only has to, what do you call it?
Pro bono,
Get paid for it.
pro bono.
okay. So somebody reword that motion then, so it includes that, we don't know what we're gonna have to pay Joe. That's an ongoing,
Yeah, and the thing is, though, before we go on further, with knowing about Joe, if the city pays Joe, because we have to, the city doesn't get that money back.
Right.
Not out of the grant, not out of nothing. The city's out that money. So it's up to Joe, if he'll hold on, that we're pushing forward, because once, like Nick was saying, once they do the engineering and that study, then they get that portion of the grant, and that's what pays Joe.
Right.
And Nick.
So the rewording of the motion, we know the first part, motion,
I think it needs to be split.
okay, we can make two motions, but the one right now is,
Do the block grant.
yes, pursue the block grant. So motion,
With Nick and Joe involved. How would you
I'll make it simple for you. Send that motion, I make a motion that we proceed on the block grant for their wastewater. Yes.
okay? Adequate?
Don't you think you ought to put the money in there,
I
or?
was gonna make a second motion, that's what I was gonna do. To make it simplified.
But you already did that. You made the motion to move forward with the block grant. You first, Charlie second,
Okay, so that.
using Nick and Sissel Engineering. So you already said, let's go
Okay.
forward for the move with the block grant. It was already approved.
Did we didn't vote on it?
No, but that was first and second.
Okay, so,
Then that's when Greg came back with his plan.
well, it kept going on and on and on, so.
This is-
All right, so we'll make that simple motion, just to get that ball rolling. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Yes, unanimously. ask the question concerning financing.
I make a motion that we pay Nick Hardy his $2,000 to start moving forward on the sewer block plan. And we pay Joe quarterly, however we get money we get.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Same process. Can we simplify the wording on that?
Is the code limited to 2,000 for everything, or?
I think that $2,000 was his ballpark.
That was his, just to start doing it. What I understand is once they get going on this, they will get some money out of that first grant payment. For all his work ahead of working with AEQ and stuff.
That's where that's when Joe said about the 35,000 to 50,000.
Right, I'm talking about the code.
No.
$2,000 doesn't cover it all.
No, because he was talking about that it's gonna cost, what, 20,000 or something to do DEQ, the feasibility studies and everything. So when they get that small portion of money back, when they get the first payment back, that'll pay their fees.
Right, but we don't get the 2,000 back.
No, we don't get the 2,000.
So why not just say
Okay,
that we pay him $2,000 to commence the application process, and any other fees will be deferred pending receipt of the grant?
I'll second it.
I like that part. Let's wait and see if everything. Are you getting all that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Excellent. Okay. Flea market fees. Who was, saying that?
I'm trying to, I don't know if you guys, I know you guys approved, so we have to put the applications and everything out. Before I sent applications out and you guys decided you were gonna change fees, because I don't know if we're gonna charge the COVID fee again, I don't know if you're gonna up the vendor fee, I don't know. And so before I sent applications out and then had you guys decide that you're gonna change your fees, and I had to go back to all these vendors and say, hey, we're gonna change things, I wanted to check with council that the fees are correct, if we're gonna charge a COVID cleaning fee or not, or where we're at with that.
Did you contact?
I did, Baker Sanitary. At this point, they say they do not see anything in the future for raising prices. So it's gonna be the same prices as it was last year.
That was the question, whether we would raise their prices.
So basically, we should probably keep the COVID one in place. For the COVID one. And COVID.
Are we
And
going
the
to
facilities
close,
that we had.
are we going to close the bathrooms again or leave them open?
I think we should keep the showers closed. I think that, you know, some of them complain, but it cuts back on labor of keeping those clean, the showers.
What did we do on labor?
Close the showers.
Just the showers?
Yeah, we left the restrooms, but we didn't have to clean showers, so we closed the showers.
Now, is that a COVID concern or is that
You're out of water.
just a?
Well, yeah, we were out of water.
Okay.
You're gonna be this year.
And it
Yeah.
did save us, I mean, again, it saved us time, so we have to go in and clean those out, so it does cut back on a little bit of labor. And if they're dire need of a shower, they go down and pay them.
And what are you gonna do about dust control? We got 2 flea markets coming.
Yeah, we still have to address that, but the main thing we were trying to decide for her purposes is what we're gonna do for fees, because they keep calling.
Okay, they keep calling, and that's fine, and I can understand why, and they're entitled to an answer. However, the question is, are we gonna subsidize it? And all these costs have to be figured in, because that's where the revenue comes from. So, you know, the fees, we know hopefully what waste and rubbish is gonna cost us. You know, I had talked about modifying that dust control thing, and we haven't gotten very far through, no fault of anybody in this room except maybe me. And that can be worked out fairly quickly if you give me someone to talk to. And as far as the other fees, you know, I don't know. You know, it seems to me we're on a razor's edge about does it make money or not. We're only gonna have 2 of them. So they may wanna know, but I think we need to do our homework and see how we can make this work if the city wants it. Like John had the idea of renting parking space.
Well, we already voted we were gonna do the 2, the main question, I thought the question was what the fees were gonna be.
Well, it is, but I don't know that we can make an intelligent decision on that at this point.
Where did we end up last year's season?
4th of July, we lost.
Yeah, how much?
I don't have the numbers, and we
I didn't.
barely made money on the other 2.
Yeah.
And that's like that.
And that's if you don't dispute the methodology of cost accounting.
And the thing is though, is this is something to think about. Is on the 4th of July, we know we're not holding it up there. It's all coming downtown. But if the city would still get the vendor's fee, not the square footage fee. And if the city would only charge the vendors whatever our rate is, the flat rate. And that includes food vendors too, because the city's not going to provide garbage. And then at that point in time, because the city's not going to provide porta potties. But I think it would be in the best interest if we open the bathrooms up down here at the volunteer park and leave the ones at Fairgrounds long.
If you're not gonna have porta potties, maybe we could have a dance contest with people doing the jig outside of.
Well, that's on the 4th of July, we decided that we were gonna let it up to the downtown vendors to do that.
Right, but you know that probably is not gonna work.
So if nothing else, going off of that statement, then we could do porta potties and only have a few.
We have, 3 businesses that do provide
Right,
bathrooms,
they
3
get
or
their
4.
own. Let them get their own.
Well, I'm just trying to say, if it's hard for me to say, give me your money, and the city ain't doing it.
Well,
To where I say, give me your money, and this is what the city's gonna provide you. Because like I said, you're gonna have food vendors here during the 4th of July, but we're not offering trash.
A vendor fee is a temporary short-term business license. Okay, the same as what John needs to pay, but it is a yearly license.
Right.
They should still have to buy a vendor license from the city for 4th of July.
Even though we're not gonna give them this.
Yeah, they're a vendor on city property.
again, they're
Yeah,
supposed to be on city property.
Let me address one other thing really short here. Been talking to Paige about parliamentary procedure. I think we all realize we need to improve on that. Public comment section, right now we have it at the end. Thinking about playing with the timing of that a little bit. While council, and we will be implementing this further, when council's doing its business, it's not a time for public comment, which includes questions, but we're very casual here. This is an issue, I think it involves the whole community. So some input from that, I think is good. So John, I'll go ahead and call on you. And go ahead and share what your thought was.
Do I need to spell all your thought?
It's up to the mayor, it's not public
Okay.
comment.
Yes, please.
Okay. This is how I think you should do things. It's just me. I know you don't want to hear me talking, but
Yes, we do.
So, the city can't afford to keep doing the flea market. Which one of you would risk $12,000 to hopefully make 200? None of you.
That's what you're doing with our tax dollars. You're risking $12,000, hoping you get enough back and maybe some profit. The city needs to get out of the flea market business, at least temporarily, move it downtown, let everybody private have it, whatever, and just get your vendor license fees. And then you'll be profitable every time. Can't go wrong. You don't have to supply water, you don't have to supply toilets. It's downtown. If you want to move it up there, the entire thing has to be there. It's just math, simple math. It all has to be up there for you to be profitable. Every one of them. So, there you go. That's all I was going to say is just the risk that you're taking isn't worth what you're getting back. I know it's a community, it is a community signature event. It's everybody knows Sumter for the flea market. Now we're losing one because we can't afford it. Which one's next? You know, so, and we are going to have another rally Memorial Day weekend, and that will bring you more people that maybe wouldn't have came here for the flea market. They're coming to ride and they'll go to the vendor. So, you know.
All right, thanks, John.
Yep.
You know, I think John's right. And, you know, not because I'm in his hip pocket, but he is, I think. The fact that if we have the vendor's fee, we charge them and basically we don't give them anything for it, this town's gonna be a mess if any number of people show up and we don't provide garbage, potties, and all that stuff. It's gonna be a mess. And of course, we can always say, well, merchants, it's your fault. Well, we got about 3 merchants in town, or maybe 4. And the people that are the vendors, they've left. They don't give a damn. So, you know, you either got to get on board with that or not, or the town's going to be a mess and everybody here ends up paying for it.
And that's a good point. You know, I have put forth over the last 3 years that I don't think it's unreasonable to raise the vendor fee. I've talked to some vendors about it. And business owners, of course, there's pushback. It's just like raising the water and sewer rates. You know, there's pushback. Nobody wants to pay more for what they're used to getting. My response is, you know, $50 for a vendor fee. If we were to put it up to $75, if $25 is going to make the difference between them making money and not making money, then they're in the wrong business.
Are they smart enough to figure that out?
Most, I would hope. But, you know, just like what you brought up, you know, if we're, and Martin, we're on that razor's edge, and we're taking a gamble if something happens during one flea market, we're only making $2,500 out of 3. That is a result of the flea market that costs the city $10,000 to fix it. You know, we just lost our profit for 4 years. People seem to think that because government is a nonprofit, it shouldn't make any profit. That's not how business works. This is a business in the sense that it needs to make enough revenue, not just to cover its hard costs, but to cover any unforeseen costs or costs that are projected down the road 15 years. We've got to get a new grader. At some point, maybe we need to get a truck and mixing station where we can do our own oiling. If we're not making able to put any money aside for this type of growth and improvement, especially when it has to deal with such an environmental and economic impact on the city as these flea markets do, then I'm along with it. We, as much as I hate to lose the signature of what built Sumter up to this point for the last 50 years, that we shouldn't be in the business. So that's my 2 cents.
On that behalf, that kind of addressed the John's ordeal. But when you sit here and you process what Martin's saying, that basically if the city doesn't provide, we're talking the 4th of July, we're not going to be involved in it, but if we don't supply some toilets and some garbage, we're going to become the next Baker County dump. Which I get. But my question is now, what happens, because we did it when COVID was here, the city shut down, we had nothing to do with it. Private people were still having the 4th of July vendors downtown. So you still have this issue. You still have Martin's issue of garbage, trash, and everything else, whether we're involved in it or not. How do you eliminate it? How do you go to John Patterson right there on his private property and say, you can't do nothing for the 4th of July? How do you?
Can you write an ordinance and say if you're gonna have vendors, you have to have your own garbage and your own?
Good.
Can you do that, Martin?
Yeah, sure. That's a condition proceeding to getting a vendor's license.
I think the people on the corner here, like by Byron, I think they had 2 porta potties, didn't they? Yeah, they got 2 of their own, just for their own, because they knew they're gonna have 30 vendors or something.
So did the pot shop there.
Pot shop does, Ronnie does.
Ronnie does.
And to extrapolate, which I didn't do, if we do raise the fees, then that gives us a cushion to be able to provide for 4th of July, 5 porta potties, a bin for garbage,
See, and I think that's one of the things, because we know how many porta potties we had to have down here in downtown for the big flea markets.
Right.
And I think what we need to do is, if you have, say we need 5. Well, if Ronnie's getting 1 and they're getting 2 and they get 2, well, city only needs to get 1.
Or just open up those, use your own facilities.
Yeah.
The railroad offered to provide porta
They
potties
put one
last year.
in,
okay.
for all of them, they did
Yeah.
last year.
So I think there's workarounds on that.
And we have private donations from public people that also pay for the porta potties too. People
The
around town that had them on there,
businesses pay for it, other businesses pay for it.
they donated money for the toilets.
But I think that because of everything else that's going up, I don't understand how come we don't raise our fees.
Well, then how much are porta potties? How many are we talking about? 2, 3?
How many do you get for 4th of July? We get 5.